and welcome everybody to the 9th episode of the Ignites Knowledge series entitled What Is? My name is Neo, and together with Ilva, Gustavo, and Xuan Ming, my co-founders of Ignites, we hope that everyone who is tuning in today is ready to enrich their brain and learn. If you have not joined us before, allow me to give you a brief introduction about Ignites and let you know why we have launched this online series. Ignites is an international network of event professionals who wants to make a positive difference in the events world. Some may call us disruptors, so I let you decide for yourself. We provide specialized consultancy services in combination with active and integrated support of project delivery. We are also very strong advocates of education, and it is one of Ignite's main pillars. Within the scope of education is knowledge sharing, and we believe that knowledge sharing is vital to the continued innovation and improvements of policies and processes in the sports industry and actually in all other industries for that matter. With that in mind, Ignite's launching this What Is series, which serves as a cornerstone of what we hope to be a rich source of information for future and established event professionals alike. The founders of Ignites, who have been working in the industry for the past decade, and that's where we know our guest today, realize that it is not easy to obtain information and knowledge of the industry, especially in specific topics around the planning and organization of a sport event without actually getting practical experience working in an organizing committee or attending a sport management course. So, the aim of this series is to provide you some of that knowledge and information about specific areas in events. Today, we are delighted to be featuring one of the pioneers in the field of sport presentation. What is sport presentation? To address that question and more, we have the privilege of having one of the pioneers in this field. She is currently the executive producer of worldwide events for Wagner Sports Entertainment and has executive produced sport presentation and victory ceremonies for more Olympic and Paralympic games than any other person in the world. She has been involved in sport presentation for 7 out of the last 9 Olympic Games, Lausanne 2020 Youth Olympic Games, the Lima 2019 Pan American Games, and Rio 2007 Pan and Para-Pan American Games, as well as the Doha 2011 Arab Games. Most of the innovations currently in sport presentation were born out of her creative vision, which has been forged through decades of experience combining sports, music, and entertainment. She got her start in production in the early days of MTV, and when she crossed over to ESPN's X Games, she brought that electric vision to the world of action sports that you know nowadays. She has also been front and center whenever new events have been added to the Olympic agenda. When new snowboarding disciplines were added to the Olympic lineup, it was her who created the vision for the live event introduction, adding screens at the top of the halfpipe to introduce the riders and live bands at the bottom. Her unmatched creative vision and passion for innovation is not limited to only the Olympic sports, but to many international sports federations routinely seek her out to bring creative energy to their sports. So I'm sure all of you right now in the audience know who I'm talking about. So let's welcome Christy Nicolay. Hi, Christy.
Hey guys, how are you? Thank you.
Good. We have a lot of your friends out here today.
Great. Okay, so yeah, if they're all my friends, they're not going to learn anything new because they are. They're probably just here to make fun of me here.
But maybe they will give you some very tough questions. Who knows, right?
Yeah. Give me some tough questions. Okay, great. So I'll get started.
So, Christy, before that, we are going to have a presentation with Christy today. So if you have any questions that you have, please write it in the chat, and then we will get back to you later after Christy's presentation. And I do believe that Christy also has some questions for the audience, which I hope you guys pay attention and answer her questions. So before I give you the floor, I would actually just like to paraphrase what your husband Bobby actually wrote in his Facebook post about this beautiful episode that we have with you today. He said that we are going to learn what goes on behind the scenes and how creating the right environments inside the venues not only enhances the experience for the spectator, but also brings out the best performances by the athletes. So I hope that, well, those of you who know Christy, well, you know what she does. But those of you who are new to sport presentation or want to learn, please ask the questions and Christy will get back to you. So I'm going to pass you the floor, Christy, and where to go.
Okay. All right. Do you see my presentation there?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, well, you pretty much covered this. So I don't really need to talk about this. And basically the bottom line is lots of games, and yeah, I'm a little bit old now. I started in Sydney and have been doing games ever since. But after Rio 2016, I started to work with a company that I had worked with before, but now I work for them, running their worldwide events division, and that is Van Wagner, and they are amazing. They've also been doing sports even longer than me. They've done like 35 years of Super Bowls and Kentucky Derby and all kinds of stuff. So it's easier probably just to show you. Here we go. So sorry guys that have seen it before, but for anybody new, just to show you what Van Wagner does. So that's a little bit about what we do. It's all sports all the time. Today we're going to talk about what sport presentation is, why it's important, all the amazing people it takes to put on a sport presentation. And Neo asked me to talk about the timeline and just kind of reflecting back, like what makes it fun, interesting, all of that. But before we even get started, if I were doing this live in a group, which I often have, I always make everyone on my team play rock, paper, scissors. They're probably all rolling their eyes right now, those that are watching. But we do it in a way to show like what it's like, you know, to be an athlete and have fans, and also what it's like to be a fan and support these athletes. So that's the way we do it, and it's very fun. It's a 20-year tradition. Not kidding. And lucky for all of you, I can't make you all stand up and run around the room and do this. But just to prove that I do make everyone on the team do it,
não, vai jogando.
even our mascots. Even sport presentation mascots play rock, paper, scissors with us. But okay, what is sport presentation? So I once had a boss who said, it's just a bunch of announcers. And then I had another boss one time that said, isn't it? It's just a lot of cable and equipment and connector thingies, which it also is. It is announcers, it is equipment. And then I think it was about 3 years before I arrived in Rio for the 26th Olympic and 2016 Olympic and Paralympic Games, there was almost no budget allocated towards sport presentation. So I spent a lot of time meeting with our top leaders there, and I was explaining to everything to the COO, and he finally said like, I understand now, I get it. And he said, it's like the icing on the cake. I said, okay, yeah, it's like the icing on the cake. And then he said, we can't afford the cake. So for anyone that was in Rio, you knew, the challenges that we had with budget. But then eventually, Sebastian Coe, who I'm sure many of you know, he's an Olympic legend and track star, and he was the president of London 2012. He came down and he met with my bosses, and he explained to them that if he had realized like the impact that sport presentation could make on a games, he would have put much more resources in that area. So then I think everyone kind of started to get it. So you could say sport presentation is, sometimes we say it's the 4 E's. So it's like we educate, entertain, and engage the live audience, but we most importantly enhance the competition for the athletes. And we do that through using announcers and MCs. We do all of the music, all of the content that goes on the video board, any entertainment, lighting, projection, special effects. I heard that Sean Bavelski said something about a fog machine, also sport presentation. So scoreboard animation. So it's all of that. So that's how you could best describe sport presentation. But why do we need it? So one reason is for spectators. Spectators, if they come to an Olympic Games or a big international multi-sport event, they could spend 6 hours at a venue for only 1 hour of competition. So if you think about all the time that it takes for them to physically get to the venue, to get in, you have to be there early. They take a lot of time only to just see 1 hour of competition. And just as important, the spectators are actually even more important than the spectators are the athletes, because without them, we wouldn't have anything to do at all. So we also want to enhance the competition for the athletes. And think about, now during COVID, some sports are happening with no fans, and you've probably heard there are some sports that just refuse to play without fans. So it is important for the athletes. Also for the international federations, or if it's an Olympic Games or a Paralympic Games, it's the IOC or the IPC. You want to ensure that you showcase the sport and you deliver at a level that they expect. And lastly is the broadcast. So we like to say we create the atmosphere that broadcast captures and sends around the world. So always our goal is for everyone that's watching the event from TV or on TV at home from wherever they are, we really want them to wish that they were there live in person with us. So we always want to create an atmosphere that just looks amazing on TV. Well, it actually is amazing, but even looks more amazing on TV, so that everybody wishes they could be there. So not that, let's see, a couple of years ago, I think it was, that the NBA, they did an experiment, and they decided that they would play the first half of the game of basketball. I think it was a Knicks versus the Golden State Warriors, where they were going to allow fans to experience basketball in its truest form. So really, we're just going to hear the sound of the sneakers. And that's how they did the first half. And then the second half, they played normally. But here is what one of the players thought about that.
Didn't expect was the lack of music in the first half. What was that like?
That was pathetic. It was ridiculous. Like it changed the flow of the game. It changed everything. You get so used to playing the game a certain way, it completely changed that. I think it was disrespectful to everyone from Michael Levine to Rick Welch and all these people who've done these things to change the game, from an entertainment perspective, and give the game a great vibe. That's complete disrespect, because you advance things in the world to make it better. You don't go back to what was bad. And so it's like computers can do anything for us. It's like going back to paper. Like, why would you do that? So it was ridiculous.
Did you know beforehand that it was going to happen like this?
No, I knew right before the game. And it changed everything. That was bad.
So there you have an idea of what the athletes can think about not having sport presentation. So who's involved in sport presentation? Well, if you know or you want to take a guess, you could just take a couple minutes to I think it's on the right-hand side, the comment section. If you can think of like all the different positions that might be part of sport presentation. And I hope my guys that have done sport presentation before get all of these right. But there's at least 12. So just start jotting them down or typing them in, I guess, on the comment section on the right side of the screen. And while we're doing that, I'm going to check in with Neo and see if, Neo, do we have any questions yet?
So we don't have any question, but I have a question. It was very interesting because you said that Rio, the president, said like, oh, it's like the icing of the cake, but we don't have the cake. So what happened then?
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, it took a bit, and they eventually started to figure out where the funds should go. I mean, I think what happened, there were things like, oh, we need to build a road, or we need to put a roof, or there were things that were seen as more important than sport presentation. So at the time, I mean, that was about 3 years before the games. So eventually, obviously, we did work everything out, and we were able to do a great games, with a great team, and everything was fine. But yeah, and always in the beginning, it's a little bit tough, with the budget,
right? Because
there are so many other important things that really do have to come before sport presentation. So he wasn't wrong when he said it was, it's like the icing on the cake.
Yes. So actually we have already received some answers here. So we have script supervisor, venue producer, announcers. I think there's a AVP, which is the assistant venue producer.
Yeah, good. Okay.
Field talent.
Yeah.
Sound tech, music director, floor coordinator, artist, audio operator. Oh, wow, okay, the list is long.
Yeah. I think they know what they're doing, these guys. Well, in case there isn't anyone out there that doesn't know, I'm going to quickly go through them. So I heard somebody say venue producer. Yes, I'm sure there are some venue producers watching. So can you tell, you can't really answer me, but probably you can tell who in this picture is the venue producer. And yes, it's our friend Amy here, the really pretty blonde, who looks in that picture a bit stressed, because being a venue producer is a it's a big job. You have to make very quick decisions, and they're also called a show caller. They are responsible for keeping everything on time. They act as a liaison to broadcast. They have to write detailed minute-by-minute scripts, like you see here, and they're the main sport presentation representative in every venue. So that's what a venue producer does. Here we have an associate venue producer. You can see she's having this is actually also my old assistant, Nina, and also who became an associate venue producer later, she's having a lot more fun because being an AVP, I think, is way more fun than being a VP. You still get to, you know, call the show sometimes. You still assist with scripts, and but the pressure is you don't have as many people yelling at you in your headphones. So it's very fun to be an AVP as well. Sometimes when we work in countries where we have dual languages, oftentimes they also act as a translator. They can go between, and they do, let's see here, they do in busy sports like beach volleyball or hockey, because we have back-to-back games, they also will sometimes step in and call a game, or also they'll write a script. So this is a very, you know, important role as well. Then some people think sport presentation, like my old boss, is just all announcers. Announcers, of course, are the voice of the games, and we always, you know, depends what games you're doing, but always like if it's the Olympic Games, for instance, we always have announcing in the host language as well as English and as well as French, because French is the official language of the IOC. When we did Lima, the official language was Spanish. Well, we were in Peru anyway, but if we had been in North America, for instance, and we were doing it in English, we would also still have Spanish. So in China, we'll be doing Mandarin, English, and French. So it just depends what country you're in and what the organizing committee is. But announcers are critical to the job. They really have to know the sport. They have to, of course, have a good voice. They have to be able to talk much better than I'm talking now. Like they can fill 10 minutes if they have to, and they're, you know, they take cues from the venue producer. So announcers are super important to sport presentation. We also have music directors, and there's DJs, there's like club DJs, and then there are music directors, and sometimes they're both. But really the difference in a games or a big sport event is music directors will often have to take cues from a producer, or they might have to work different timings around the sport. They are responsible for gathering all the athlete music requests. They create the atmosphere. They kind of can control the ambient, what am I trying to say? The appropriate ambient in each venue. And I think they make a big difference. Like a skilled music director versus just a DJ playing whatever he wants can make a huge difference in how the sport runs. And I think I heard Neo mention that Sean Pavelski was on. And Sean Pavelski is the music director for the Tampa Bay Bucks, for the NFL, for the Tampa Bay Lightning, many other sports, and also often makes our music library for us. So I'm not just saying that because he's on, and there might be other music directors on, but they are super important to sport presentation. Oh, and if you have a good one, here I'll just show you an example of what a difference they can make. It's very fun to be a music director. Music directors, DJs also need an audio operator or a sound technician or a sound mixer. They're responsible for mixing the board, the microphones, the sound check. They ride the levels for us, and yeah. In a big games, they usually come through the sound company. In sport presentation, we don't always hire them directly. Sometimes we do, but usually we don't. Video directors, just as important as a venue producer. They are often also called a vision mixer, but that's also a piece of equipment, depending where you are. And they'll control all of the content that goes to the video boards, and they work very closely with timing and scoring. And it's really good if your video directors also understand the sport. Video playback operators are the ones that will prepare all of the content the video director will take to the screen. They usually sit right next to the video director. They're sometimes called a digital playback operator. And then we have editors as well. So oftentimes we'll have an editor there who can capture highlights and, you know, I don't know, they might have to make some graphics or something on the fly. They, yeah, so I think probably everyone knows what an editor is. Field producer, so the next three jobs here are the field team. And here we have, so a field producer, there's a field producer, a camera operator, and an on-camera talent. And the field producer is the person that will coordinate all the live and pre-produced programming. They'll be on their headset talking to the venue producer. They might have to sell the venue producer on a story. The venue producer might say, hey, I have a minute and a half to fill. What do you got? What do you got? And the field producer would say, hey, I'm standing here with Sean White, and we're going to do an interview. So whatever that is, it's always the field producer that coordinates it. I actually started as a field producer, and I think it's the best job ever myself. So it's no, they don't let me do it anymore, but it's super fun if you're a field producer. Here we have the field producer is actually on the right there with her headset, and then you can see the cameraman. And then we have our on-camera host, or our field talent, the guy there in the blue. That's the legendary, amazing Brad J. And this is at surfing in Lima, so he's interviewing one of the surfers there. So the field talent often have to be bilingual. They'll take direction from the field producer. Sometimes they provide commentary. They also have to follow along on the script, and they have to really understand the sport, have good ideas of what interviews they can do. And then we have our camera operators, of course. They're part of that field team. It's usually a pack of 3. They run around and have to be ready at a moment's notice to do a live hit to the screen, just like you do in TV. But what else does sport presentation need to succeed? Well, of course, technology. I could have a whole section on technology, but lucky for you, I put it in one slide. But we rely heavily on our technology teams, and whether it's an Olympic Games or even just a skateboarding event or a single sport event, we always need technology. We really can't operate without wired and wireless communication equipment. Music and audio equipment. They'll handle lighting and projection for us, make sure we have video boards up and running, scoreboards, all the equipment you see there on a desk, the monitors and timing and scoring information, and so much more. And as Sean said, a fog machine also. And we also use a lot of video production. So we create hours and hours of content for the big screens. If you think about a venue opening 1 or 2 hours before the competition, a lot of that will be filled with video production, and we'll do everything from original content to educational, pop-up videos, because we want to explain to people about the sport in advance. We do a lot of athlete headshots so that we can show the fans like a closer look at their favorite athletes, or what the athletes look like. Like we really want to show their personality so that people can get to know them better. And of course, entertainment. I mean, entertainment can be anything. It can be as little or as much as you have budget and time for. And we've done everything from, having live bands at the bottom of a half pipe to, I think it was in Salt Lake, we actually had wild bison roaming on the biathlon and cross country venue. We had horse-drawn sleighs taking people from their cars to the parking lot. The type of entertainment that you can have is really limitless. So it just depends on how much time you have to put it together, what the budget is, and of course the creativity that comes into it, and also if it makes sense with the sport. So timeline, I mentioned that I started working on Rio about 3 years before. In Vancouver, I started about 2.5 years before. I would say the average time to start to work on sport presentation is about 3 years. It usually starts with figuring out the budget or developing the budget and seeing what's going to get approved, and that will help you know what you can do. The next thing we do is I always look at the venues, even if they're not built yet, just having a sense of where they are and what's around them, and can kind of give you a sense of what kind of things you're going to be able to do at that venue. So we always do site surveys, and then of course we want to start looking at our spaces in the venue. And then we start to develop the production, everything that we're going to do, not just the entertainment, but everything that we're going to do. So we always are working on like a sport presentation concept. And we'll start to test those things, and we also test people at test events. And it's not so much like, oh, he's a good person or a bad person. It's really, we test announcer voices, because let's say you have a French announcer and an English announcer and a Portuguese announcer, even though they're all great announcers and they know the sport, you want to make sure that their voices work together. So you wouldn't want like all of them sounding exactly the same. So it's like a big puzzle to match announcers and producers and DJs. And that's one of the biggest things that we do in the test events. While everybody else is testing the venue and logistics, and we're really testing our team and building like the most perfect team that we can. And then we start to get final approvals from all the international federations or whomever, or the organizing committee or whomever it is that we're working with. And then we start to contract those teams. And in Olympic Games, for instance, in Rio, we had 1,608 people that we had to contract. So it takes a long time to do all the contracts. And that's really what you're doing until you get up to games time. And then the best part is when everybody arrives, the team is there. It's always an amazing team. And then we start to do workshops and we start to run rehearsals. And the next thing you know is it's games time. And then the next thing you know is it's over. And we're all wishing it wasn't over. So that's kind of a sport presentation timeline. And just kind of looking back on things that Neo asked me to reflect on is what makes sport presentation fun and interesting. Well, hopefully all my guys that are a part of the sport presentation team already, I would say the same thing. For me, it's all about the team. To me, it doesn't matter like where people come from, as long as like they're the best at what they do. And we often have, like 21, 22 different nationalities on a sport presentation team. And I just always feel like we're always just waiting till what's the next big sporting event where we can all be together and we can all work together again and put on something that's like amazing for the fans and for the athletes and for broadcast. So it's always a ton of fun. And I think that like right now during COVID, we're all a bit in withdrawal because we're not able to be together and to work on things that we love. Challenging, it can be challenging. Usually it's budget related when it's challenging for us, but right now it's challenging due to the current, due to COVID right now. So, I mean, sports are starting to come back, and here in the U.S., we're going to have some football starting soon. That some teams will have players, but the U.S. Open is going on now without any fans. The NBA, of course, without fans. So there are things that are challenging, like trying to do what you love, but just can't right now. So, but usually when it's challenging, it usually has to do with the budget. So that's the honest answer on what's challenging. And what can be improved? Definitely, I mean, there's always room for an improvement, and things always advance. Technology advances, so it's always like, what are we going to do that's new, that's different? And depending on where you're working, sometimes it doesn't always have to be new and different. I think when we did the Lima 2019 Pan American Games, they hadn't had a lot of sports that had a big sport presentation presence yet. And so really our concept there was, I think the logo was "Let's all play." So we looked at that and we said, oh, let's all play. And instead of like big fancy, expensive entertainment type things, what we did is we looked at ways that we could interact with fans. And so we did that, through like a special dance that my team had come up with that we taught everybody, and interactive ways that the fans could have fun while they were watching the sport or while they're waiting for the sport to start. So there's always different things. Before COVID, we were working a lot on like how to get people off their couch and into a venue, because when people can watch now at home on their TVs, it's like, why should they come to a venue? So we were looking at different things like unique viewing areas and ways that fans can get closer to the athletes. And there's all kinds of different things you can do that can be improved. So hopefully I didn't talk too long there. And that is Sport Presentation. And I guess I'll turn it over to Neo to see if my guys gave me any hard questions or anyone else out there has hard questions or any questions.
So thank you, Christy. That was very, very knowledgeable, because this is also the first time which I'm learning a little bit more about sport presentation. I have experienced it, but never actually gone behind the scenes as what you said. I mean, I noted down, I was a good student. I noted out that there was 11 positions from your slides.
Oh yeah, okay. There's a lot more than that, but those were I think someone said floor manager before. I mean, there's also production assistants and script supervisors. So there are a lot more. So probably I did the short version.
Okay, so we have one question which actually is related to COVID from our dear friend Derek.
Ah, my dear friend Derek, yes.
So he said, because of COVID-19, we've seen recently college football announcers calling games remotely, and sports crowds now as video LED walls, cutouts in stands, and cheers being picked into stadiums and arenas. How has your planning for sports presentation shifted in these past few months, along with managing your clients' new expectation?
Yeah, okay, leave it to Derek Salisbury to give me the hard question. Yeah, well, he knows as well as I do. Like, yeah, it's happening. I think the NBA did a really good job with their, I think it's called their Teams, so through Microsoft Teams, where their biggest fans can watch. What I understand is they get to watch it a few seconds before it's on broadcast. So, and they're there, and then they are shown on the LED walls that kind of surround the perimeter of the court. So that's a real live way that, the players know that the fans are right there. The fans are actually watching and responding to the game there. I have not gotten to experience any of these things yet. I do have an event, hopefully coming up soon, in Greece. So we will see, but we are kind of working on things. I won't say like we're not doing the sport presentation. We still are, but like, for instance, we're still working on like a player's tunnel, still doing things for the athletes and for broadcast. And as soon as we find out whether or not there will be fans, then we'll start to add on more sport presentation elements that are, for the fans that are there as well. But most teams, and actually Sean Pavelski is on, I know that he's even though they don't have fans where he is, I know like he's still playing music. So like a lot of colleagues are at the US Open right now. The announcers are still there. The DJs are still there. Actually, one of our guys who is a DJ is actually doing like sound design. So he is putting in sounds of people applauding and people cheering and that kind of thing. So, and it's different. I know Sam in Australia, one of our producers there, is doing rugby. I know that they're doing that as well. So there's a lot of innovation is coming out.
Yeah, so I guess I mean, like, the event that you're going to Greece, it's going to be a bit different, because you normally have all your plans already set in advance before going to the event, and then now you have to go see the situation and then adapt.
Right. Yeah, I think the big word right now that everybody uses is pivot. Like,
Yes.
we're all pivoting a little, depending on what the needs are and what the situation is. And even like Van Wagner, I mean, even our company who's, all sports all the time, we've been doing, other things that are not sports, like virtual type events. So everybody's, adjusting a bit, but of course, all hoping that sports comes back the way that we all love it and, love to work on.
Yes, for sure. We have another question from Gustavo. He said, thanks a lot for the informative presentation. I have a question. When you go to a country like Peru, without a tradition in sports presentation, you bring your team from do you bring your team from other countries? And if so, what is the ratio of locals you capacitate?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. We always work with as many locals as we can, and we always try to leave a legacy. And I think that we did that certainly in Athens when I did the Athens 2004 games. We brought, I think, just the venue producers and the English announcers, and then we kind of, and some music directors as well, and actually some video people as well. But then we did, we taught sport presentation there, and a couple of the guys, Eddie and Yorgos, who were two of my lead producers there, we still work with today, and they're still doing sport presentation. Rio 2007, I think I saw that Hari was on, and maybe some other guys from Rio that worked on the Pan American Games in 2007. We're also on our same team in 2016. So like I said, it doesn't really matter where people come from. We never want to just like bring all foreigners in and, okay, we're going to do it and we leave. Like that's never the idea. The idea usually is, to bring as the best team, but also the smallest team as possible, and then work with as many local people as we can. I think I want to say it's usually like depending on where we're going, but it's usually, I think it's like maybe a 25% like my team foreign, and like maybe, I don't know, something like 60-75% all locals. But again, it just depends.
Okay. So, yeah. Well, I noted that you said you had 1,608 that you hired in Rio.
Yeah.
So how many percentage was like locals, and how many was actually your team that you brought?
I just checked this recently for something. Well, out of that 1,608 were all of our entertainment, so all of the performers, and also victory ceremonies. So we had quite a huge team in victory ceremonies there. I don't know if I'm not sure I have these numbers right, but I think it was like 65%. 60% Brazilians and maybe 40% foreign, and that's because the video production team was mostly foreign. So otherwise, I think it's those numbers could change a bit.
Right. But I think 60-40 is a very good number to leave a legacy. At least out of that 60%, that at least 10%, I believe, would be continuing somehow in sport presentation. Maybe not in sport, but in other events.
Yeah. To me, I think it's really important that the venue producers are all very experienced. And it doesn't mean that we can't find local venue producers and train them and teach them during the test events. Of course, we've done that. But if you come in without being able to have a test event, or for whatever reason, like our test events for Beijing 2022, we weren't able to have this year. Hopefully we're going to have them, in January, February. But I think it's, to me, the venue producer is really important to have experienced. And also English announcers, we almost always have to bring all of the English announcers, just because they're usually the ones that are doing all the events around the world. So they often work for the international federations. So they not only do big games, but they do all of the other events that are going on in their sport. So typically I would say a venue producer, an English announcer are the ones that are going to be almost always brought in, as well as a core team. And then everybody else we would work to do locally.
All right. We have a question also from Sean David Powolski. Well, I guess he's a friend of yours, and he said, "Can you explain?"
Colleague.
he asked, "Can you explain why you like instrumentals of music being played at international games?"
Yes, leave it to him. Okay, this is the reason. So I don't want to say like which games or country, but sometimes we go into a country or Olympic Games there, and the most there could be some like very popular music that has lyrics that are popular in that country, but they might throw in some English words, or even in that, okay, let's just say Russian, for instance, has very bad messaging, and that stuff might make it through onto a library because, oh, this song is so popular in Russia, but then we find out it's like a very bad message, and so it's safer to have instrumental, have those very popular songs, but in instrumental versions. So Sean, who actually does create a lot of our library, I'm always harping on him like, hey, can you get that song, this whatever new favorite song that it's #1 around the world, but it's not a good message, and then he'll find it in instrumental for me. Or sometimes we have them recomposed. It was in Peru, actually. I'm trying to think. Oh, okay. So everyone will hate me for this, but I do not like Queen, We Will Rock You, because I don't think that, first of all, the song's like 40 years old. I think we can do better. Probably everyone's booing me right now.
No.
I think, blood on your face, you're a big disgrace, is not a good message. But this is one of the most popular sports songs of all time. So what we did is we had that song composed with Peruvian instruments, and we played that in Peru. We also did that with like Back in Black and Journey's Believing, and so yeah. So there are things that you can do. Another reason that we use instrumental versions, not all the time. Like I would say in the 1 or 2 hours coming in, we just use normal music with lyrics. But we'll start to use instrumental music as it starts getting close to zero time, because that's typically when announcers are having to like give a starting lineup or they talk a lot. And if we can reduce the layer of talking, then we'll do that. So it's when an announcer is giving a lot of commentary, rather than putting music that has lyrics that compete with what an announcer is saying. We can put an instrumental version, and then it's much cleaner. Because
right.
If you think about people at home watching on broadcast, well, they also have a broadcast announcer. So, and if the sound from the venue is being picked up behind them, it's one layer that we can remove when we do instrumental type music. And right. Thanks to Sean, actually, and others that have worked on our library, we have something like, I don't know, 8,000 instrumental tracks of our 17,000 track library. So,
wow.
So, and Sean, he always, whenever a new song comes out, he sends me the song first. I think you'll like it. And of course I always love it. And then, a couple days later, here's the instrumental version. So,
so he knows you very well already.
Yeah. I always send me killer songs too, the killer.
So we have another question which is related to music. So I'm just going to take it.
Okay.
It's from Rob Hamburg. And he said, can you talk on how you deal music licensing rights for each event, sync rights?
Yeah, so another good question. Thanks, Rob. I haven't seen Rob in so long. Holy moly. I think since I've seen him since, but we worked together in Salt Lake 2002. Yeah, well, it's different in every country you go to. So in the US and in Canada, for instance, we did a blanket agreement. So it's always like in the US, it's ASCAP, BMI. But in each country, it's different. They have a different, music licensee. And we try to get a blanket agreement so that any music that is played in the venue in the background we just pay like one fee for, and it covers like all of the music that are under those labels, and it's all, which is almost all music. If we have been in countries, I think it was in Greece, where we had to track each song that we played, and we had to pay per time that we played the song. Yeah, it's always different. If you're syncing, yeah, we do have to pay sync rights if we sync the music to a video, for instance. So if we don't have royalty-free music for the videos that we're creating, yeah, we do have to pay sync rights. So we try to use royalty-free music whenever possible. But yeah, it's something that it is something big that it gets worked on in every single country and every single games or event even that we do.
And just out of curiosity, what about the national anthems that you play for the victory ceremonies? Do you get them from the IOC, or is it something that you?
No, so now we get them from the IOC. We didn't used to. When I think back to like Salt Lake, for instance, we had all of the national anthems were composed and recorded by the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, and so they were all like original, and they were authentic to the Salt Lake games, and of course we had the rights to them, so they could only be played at the Salt Lake 2002 games. Vancouver, I'm trying to remember, Athens, I don't know, but somewhere in there, eventually the IOC had them recorded, and the IOC owns the rights to them. So whenever we do an Olympic Games, we get them straight from the IOC, and they're all.
And is that the same if you go for any other game? So, for example, the Lima 2019.
Lima 2019, they were different. They were different anthems because they couldn't be the IOC anthems, and then we got them from PASA, from the organizing committee for Pan American Games. So, okay. Yeah.
So I have two more questions, which actually one of them relates to a question from the audience, but I'm gonna ask mine first, and then we'll close up with that final question from the audience. So I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the education portion of a sport presentation during the event itself, because in Pyeongchang 2018, I saw that there was a video played during the breaks to inform the spectators about format and rules, or basically to educate more of the people in the stands. Is this something which is practiced in all sports and part of sport presentation?
It's in all Olympic sports or big game sports. It's not usually done like if you go to a Laker game or anything like that, where it's just one sport, because everybody figures they know the sport already or they wouldn't be coming. But in a big multi-game sport where people might get a pack of tickets, and they might get tickets to something that they've never been to, so it is a big thing that we do. We've always done those videos as long as I can remember, those educational type videos. But something that we started to do in Lima and that we're working on now for Beijing, and rather than doing these educational videos that often have to be played way before the zero time. So sometimes, it's hard to fit them in like 2 minutes before the whatever the sport is starts. So something that we're working on are more like pop-up videos. So if anybody out there is as old as I am and remember, we used to have something on VH1. So I used to work for MTV and VH1, and VH1 had this thing called pop-up videos, where it was like a music library. So, and let's say it was Madonna, and then as she is singing, these little bubbles would pop up, and they'd say, "Oh, Madonna's real name is this," or "Madonna was born here," and so you could kind of learn about the song or the performer or whatever during those pop-up videos. So we in Lima, we actually decided like, oh, let's start to try these and do these for sport. So it's a bit tricky because, like I said, it requires the video director to know the sport inside and out, as well as the producer does. They really have to follow along, and we also have to have all of the pop-up videos already created. And then we have to have them in so that they can appear in, like different parts of the screen. I'm pointing at my screen because you don't know where on the live broadcast feed you might want them to pop up. But this is a way that we hope that we can educate people like at the moment that they have a question. And this came actually, it was at a I think it was an event. I think Hari's on, but Hari was producing a weightlifting event. It was a test event for in Lima. And I remember watching, and the guy, the athlete, lifted his weights, and it looked like a good lift. So I was expecting the graphic to be like good lift, and it wasn't. And I thought, well, why isn't it? And that would have been the moment for someone to explain to me why it was not a good lift when it looked like a good lift. And that was kind of where we started to get the idea. If we can figure out all of the things that might happen that should be explained to someone that might not know, all the details of that sport, that this is a good way to educate.
Yeah, I think that's a good. I mean, I guess you need somebody who really, like you said, really knows the sport inside, or maybe somebody even from the technical official side to sit kind of next to you to say like, pop up this information or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sport spotter we call them. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we're gonna go for one last question, which is related to also the closing question that I have for you. Well, I do believe that there are some aspiring young producers out there that they want to become a Christy Nicolay in the future. So what is your advice to them? And Hari actually asked the question, how was the experience with the Van Wagner Academy? And I guess this is something that you can relate to the both questions.
Yeah, so the Van Wagner Academy, the first time that we did that was in the Lausanne 2020 Youth Olympic Games. It was actually an idea from Patrick Stalder at the IOC, so I can't take credit for the idea. I actually thought he was crazy in the beginning because I said, I don't know how to teach an academy. Like, I'm not a professor, or I didn't know the first idea about that. But luckily I knew people that did, and we were actually Hari was one of the coaches, and I had a very small team, but a very small but international team and very experienced team that we brought there to Lausanne. Very small. I think our core team was like 12, maybe 16, 12 or 16 people, something like that. And then the rest were not only just local, but they were all students. So it actually went very well. We had I'd heard before that in previous games where where different functional areas had relied heavily on using volunteers. There's always a high attrition level. People can't work every day. They have other jobs or they have other responsibilities, and that just can't happen in sport presentation. Like, if you're doing a job in sport presentation, you're there every day that there's competition, and you don't usually have a day off in 3 weeks' time. So having volunteers do sport presentation jobs is really hard. It's not like you can't spend weeks and weeks training an announcer, and then one day that announcer can't come and you have to put another announcer in. So that's why we use volunteers for victory ceremonies or entertainment, but you can't use it for those you can't use volunteers for those core jobs that have to be like there on the field of play. So we weren't really sure how it was going to do, but what we did is we did first sort of a casting or an audition, really, or an interview process, and we selected all of the students and assigned them to each of the positions, and then we just completely put it out of our heads that they were volunteer students. They really just became part of the sport presentation team, and that's how we thought of them. They just were part of our sport presentation team, and the end result was that we didn't have anyone drop out. Well, we had one guy drop out, but he actually had a medical situation, and he brought us a note from his doctor. We kept the team, and I think that they all learned, they all had a good time. I think it was fun for them, and unfortunately, we thought 2020 was going to be amazing. So we thought that, we were starting off in Lausanne and Switzerland, like what better place to kick off the year with the very first event being a Youth Olympic Games. And I think we all just thought like, wow, this is amazing. Like we're going to do this in Dakar, which unfortunately is now moved to 2026. And, we thought we could just keep doing this because it's so important to engage youth and to also to grow the industry. And I think my personal opinion is that it went really well. I thought the experience was amazing. I think that we're also sad now that we kind of lost the momentum due to COVID, but hopefully it comes back and we'll get to do it again. And we're all in touch with the students still, and really hope that some of them, come back to that career path of working in sports and sports management and sport presentation. So
what is your advice if they want to become a Christy Nicolay?
You don't know. They don't want that.
I would disagree.
You know what? The one thing I wish I had done that would really help me in my career is learn as many languages as possible. I'm so envious of all these young kids that can speak 5 languages fluently. It's like, I just want to go back and go, I should have learned everything when I was, 10, 12, 15. I can get by in a lot of languages. I learned like the most, important 20 themes in each language, and Russian and French and Portuguese and Chinese and Korean. But it would really help if you want to work around the world in sports. That's the one thing. Also, I think you have to have you have to love sports, of course. I've always loved sports. And I think that you have to have a strong, to work in production, any type of production, not just sport presentation or sport production. You have to have a strong sense of urgency. I still it's been over 20 years, and if someone lets me come be a venue producer, like I get to fill in for somebody, I still get nervous. Like I still stay up till 2 a.m. writing my script the night before to make sure that, I have everything. So if you want to spend a lot of time on the road and working with other cultures and but still, I don't know how I managed to do like all the things that I love compiled into one thing. So now, I've always loved sports, I've always loved travel, and I've always loved production. And I don't really think that I knew how I was going to do all of those things at once, but somehow it works out.
It happened.
It happened.
No, it's very obvious that you love what you do, and I think it has become increasingly popular right now, especially with COVID and everything. I think the trend is changing, that people actually need to work for their passion rather than work for material things. And I think that is a very strong message to young budding professionals who wants to go into any kind of industry. It has to come from the heart, and then every day is a play day, even though it's a work day.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. I mean, it's nice being home. I've never been home this many days in a row ever. So there's definitely, like, as people say, there's silver linings to the whole thing. But I think that everybody that has this kind of innate passion inside of them to produce sports and to make a difference for athletes and for fans and to work with different cultures, around the world, like it is fun. And then I guess when it's that fun, it's not really a job. So like
Indeed.
they say, yeah.
Yes. So thank you very much, Christy. And we have some audiences who said, great to hear about the academy. It's a fantastic way to build legacy.
Yeah, I really hope we get to keep doing it, because I do feel like we did leave a bit of a legacy there. Well, we always leave a legacy in every games, but I think that we really did leave one with the students, and hope that we can work with more students in other countries. And
yep, fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. So I think I'm gonna end our session. If we go on, I think we can go on for hours.
Yes,
talking
sorry.
about no, don't say sorry. I think the audience wants a second season, so let's try to get a second episode talking about maybe victory ceremonies. Who knows?
boy, okay, yeah. A little bit about that.
All right. So I hope all of you who tuned in today had fun. There were a lot of videos that Christy showed us, and also some insights to what sport presentation is about. We learned that actually we need the 4 E's to make a successful sport presentation: educate, entertain, engage, and of course, enhance. So if you have any further questions, I think, Christy, you are available to maybe receive some messages on your LinkedIn.
Sure. LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. I'm all over the place. I don't have Twitter. Yeah.
So thank you very much, everybody. Especially thank you very much to Christy for being our guest today and sharing your knowledge. Do follow us on our social media sites for the next episode. We want to keep it a mystery, so you just have to follow us on our social media sites, which is right now going around at the bottom. We have our Instagram, we have Twitter. Visit also our website. And finally, do stay safe. The pandemic is not over. Wash your hands and stay active.
Okay.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.